The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports. You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So you want to know how I know USC is back? Well, they're on probation for the next year. Some things just never go away. At least it feels like that when you're a USC football fan. Ever since Lincoln Riley took over the program 3 years ago, right? There's been minimal drama, very little drama, nothing to talk about going on off the field. He hasn't had to cover up anything or explain away why a certain player made a boneheaded decision, why one of his assistant coaches did something that he probably wished he didn't do. But at the same time, you know what? Lincoln Riley is no Kirby Smart. So while Lincoln Riley's players don't jump behind the wheel, travel 150 miles per hour after they've been drinking, Kirby Smart's team, his players, they're not on probation, to my knowledge. However, Coach Riley, his team is. For the next year, they're on probation for 1 year. The NCAA announced Tuesday that the enforcement staff and the USC Trojans have agreed to violations and penalties from a level 2 violation stemming from analysts providing on and off the field instructions. Oh no. I cannot believe they did that. Are you serious? If you're not watching me on YouTube, that's me feigning sarcasm, clutching the pearls. Not really. The issue came up when a special teams analyst, it's assumed to be USC's special teams coach, Ryan Doherty, through his unnamed, although he isn't named in the actual resolution, quote, he provided technical and tactical instruction to at least one current football student athlete during the 2023 spring practice. Okay, so this happened last year, 2023, during the spring. USC's known about this for a while. The NCAA enforcement staff received that information and sent a letter of inquiry to USC in May of 2023. Later that year, in August, USC submitted a self-report which confirmed the special teams analyst engaged in a brief 5 to 10 minute informal, unscheduled meetings with two football student athletes who requested the special teams analyst's assistance and feedback in reviewing their spring 2023 practice film. The horror. Oh no. Can you believe USC broke that rule? So what are the penalties? Not a lot. USC has been placed on a 1-year probation starting today, November 12th, 2024, and it'll go through November 11th, 2025. And the university has to pay a $50,000 fine. In addition to that, USC will have to restrict various analysts who were involved in the issue for 6 consecutive days during this season. Oh no, what will USC ever do? So USC self-imposed a penalty to reduce accountable athletically related activities for the football program by 25 hours during the season. I'm not sure how you enforce that, but whatever. The Trojans also added a full-time athletics compliance staff member dedicated to football monitoring responsibilities. So that's how they're going to do it. They hired someone to make sure to look at their watch. Right, got to stop. Make sure nobody's talking to anybody they shouldn't be talking to. But you know what? Here's my honest opinion about this. I could not care any less that USC is being put on probation, especially for a secondary violation, which isn't even a violation anymore. That's the best part about this whole thing. $50,000 fine, who cares? Somewhere in this country, there was a recruit who just got a $50,000 NIL offer to sign with that program, or at least to verbally commit. $50,000 fine. USC spends more than that on an official visit weekend, like times 10. But leave it to USC to break a rule that 1 year before, and then the rule doesn't exist any longer when they're actually hit with a penalty. So starting in 2024, a football staff, not sure if you're aware of this year, football staffs can be as big as they want. They can have as many coaches as they want, as many analysts as they want, and there's no restrictions. They can talk, they can teach, instruct, develop. And if you think back, this is just so USC, right? It took a few years, for it to finally come to fruition. However, when Pete Carroll's program was put on probation, name, image, and likeness, NIL, it was illegal. Now it's actually encouraged. You need it. In fact, if you don't pay players, your team is going to struggle to win games. We know USC has been struggling with their NIL during its infancy. Supposedly they got that all under control. They're walking now. They're getting ready to run. So what I do find kind of funny and ironic, that the reason USC is on probation, it has to do with special teams of all the position groups. I mean, if you think about it, Coach Riley has been so steadfast since he's been at USC about why he doesn't hire a full-time special teams coach. He has one now. He promoted Ryan Doherty to that after they knew about the situation. So that's why he doesn't. I don't even think Coach Riley cares about this, to be honest with you. So again, the fact that this is where the violation stemmed from, when USC special teams haven't really even been that special, it only kind of adds some insult to the hypocrisy of this whole thing. Again, this was a rule last year when USC allegedly admitted breaking this rule. It's not a rule anymore, but they're going to pay the piper. They're going to be put on probation for a year. What does that mean? That means if they break any more rules, now the NCAA can come in with a hammer. So again, while I don't give a rip about this violation, what I do care about a lot is how USC only has 4 wins, despite Lincoln Riley, his blatant and his wanton disregard for the rules, developing players. I mean, can you believe he would break that rule, allowing an analyst, a special teams analyst, to talk to a student athlete for 5 to 10 minutes about his kicking performance? Oh my God. No wonder USC's not in the playoffs. Yeah, I'm dripping with sarcasm right now, folks. USC breaking rules that shouldn't be rules and then self-reporting, it's just so on brand for USC. And the reason why USC, and I'm using finger quotes, self-reported, is because allegedly someone snitched on the program. Don't know who, not going to point any fingers, doesn't matter. But somebody let the NCAA know that USC's breaking rules again. The fact that USC admitted they even broke this rule, it would be like me admitting to my parents when I was a kid living at home that, yeah, you know what, I broke curfew by 30 minutes. You weren't paying attention, but I'm going to tell you now. Why? Why would you do that? Paul D. Remember him? Remember that? Well, I'll keep the I'll keep the descriptive words to a minimum. Paul D., the guy responsible for USC receiving essentially the death penalty. He once said that high-profile athletes demand high-profile compliance. Remember, everything that USC was accused of, they didn't do anything wrong. It was the timing of everything. And today, everything that USC was penalized for is actually encouraged. You've got to do it now. So I'm thinking, all right, if high-profile athletes need high-profile compliance, well, doesn't that mean that a high-profile head coach like Lincoln Riley should be maybe putting together a 34-game winning streak, a couple of Heisman, at least two more Heismans, a couple of national championships before you're putting your team on probation, before you finished your third year in charge of the program? Definitely USC is back, baby. Only USC can figure out a way to be on probation without even winning anything of significance. Again, this is a real nothing burger. I'm talking about it because it's the news of the day. But in the grand scheme of things, big picture, this should not and will not affect USC's program going forward.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be on.
The Big Ten dominates the top of the college football playoff rankings.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference.
But the College Football Playoff Committee released its second round of its playoff rankings on Tuesday night. And it's all Big Ten at the top. Oregon Ducks remain at number 1. Ohio State Buckeyes still at number 2. Texas at 3. And then back to more Big Ten teams with Penn State at number 4. And the Indiana Hoosiers at 10-0 are at number 5. BYU, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, and Alabama round out the top 10. Ole Miss is 11th. Georgia is 12th, but they would be the first team out. If the season ended today, Georgia is not a playoff team. Boise State at 13 would get in as a conference champion. SMU is the second team out right now. By the way, a quick comparison. Remember last week, we were a little bit critical of how the top 12 just seemed to mirror what the AP was doing, the AP poll. The AP poll, very similar up top with the top 5 with Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Indiana. They have flipped Tennessee and BYU. Notre Dame is 8 in both polls. Alabama is 9th in the AP, but 10th in the college football playoffs. Miami is 9 in the playoff poll, but they're 12th in the AP, for example. But anyway, we pay less attention to the AP poll and more attention to this college football playoff poll, because that's the one that is very important. And we'll look at the playoff seedings as if the season ended today. We'll do that in just a moment. As we mentioned in detail in yesterday's Locked On Big Ten podcast, you can go back and check it out, by the way, on YouTube or talkbig10.com. The Oregon Ducks heavy lifting appears to be over as far as the remaining schedule goes, with games at Wisconsin this weekend and then a bye before the season finale against Washington at home. A reminder regarding the Oregon at Wisconsin game Saturday. Locked On Big Ten will go live on YouTube immediately following that game. So we invite you to check us out. Put that on your calendar. We'll be there. We'll have immediate reaction to that game and all the other games throughout the day around the Big Ten. Plus, we look forward to your live real-time comments there as well. As we said in that podcast yesterday, the only thing that could really stop the Ducks right now is themselves. They can't have any more 12 penalty games like they did last weekend, and they need to stay healthy. That's another item that's been a little bit borderline lately. They've suffered some injuries as of late. Where things really get interesting in the Big Ten is next week when Indiana plays Ohio State. Looks like it'll be a top 5 matchup. The Hoosiers are preparing for that game. They're off this week with a bye week, getting ready for the biggest game maybe in school history. Got a whole 2-week period to prepare for it with the bye this week. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes are in action this weekend. They'll take on Northwestern. That'll be at Wrigley Field as a tune-up, if you will. It seems likely that the winner of the Indiana-Ohio State game would then play Oregon for the Big Ten championship in December. Now, that's not set in stone. Things can happen. A lot of football still up to play. Of course, Penn State's still in the mix as well. We do know that next week's IU-Ohio State game will be the big noon kickoff game on Fox. Again, that's next weekend. And then the Hoosiers have their season finale against Purdue, who has struggled this year. And, of course, the Buckeyes will close out against Michigan. But, again, let's not forget Penn State as well. They're in the mix as a one-loss team. Their 3 remaining games are at Purdue and at Minnesota, which Penn State better not take lightly, and the season finale at home against Maryland. All right, so with all the ratings information we have as of today, let's take a look at the projected playoff matchups as if this were the final poll, as if the season were over. This will change a couple more times, a couple more weeks, but this is how things stand as of today based on the information we got Tuesday night. And remember, there's a difference between rankings and seedings in the playoff because the conference champions will be put in a higher spot. For example, Ohio State's ranked second, but because Oregon is ahead of them, the best seeding that Ohio State could have is 5. All right, so we'll explain it all going on. This is as if the season were over today. It would be 12 seed Boise State taking on 5 seed Ohio State. Ohio State would be the home team there. The winner of that would then take on the 4th seed ranked team, which is the 4th seeded team, Miami. Again, they're ranked 9th, but because they'd be an ACC champion under this scenario, they would get the 4th seed in a bye. Miami would. So Boise State take on Ohio State. The winner of that game would take on Miami, hypothetically. The 9-8 game, Notre Dame at Tennessee. The winner of that game would play the number 1 seeded and number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks. Ole Miss, big win last weekend, right? They're the 11th seed. They would take on 6 seed Penn State at Penn State. That'd be a home game at Happy Valley. The winner of that would take on the 3 seed BYU the following week. And then 10 seed Alabama would take on 7th seed, but 5th ranked Indiana at Indiana. Now, there's a lot of talk, wouldn't that be great if that game were in Bloomington? I have a hunch that if Indiana gets a home football game in a college football playoff scenario, as much as I would love it to be on campus and be at Memorial Stadium, which holds about 53,000 people, I'm pretty sure that game would get moved to Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. The home team would have the option to do that. You just got way more tickets to sell. It's just too much money. I think that's what they would do. Anyway, Alabama and Indiana, the winner of that game, hypothetically, would then take on the 2 seed Texas Longhorns. So all that. Again, if the season ended today, the Big Ten would have 4 teams in the playoff. The SEC would have 4 teams. And again, Georgia would not be in. 1 ACC, 1 Big 12, 1 Mountain West team would be in there. Other teams lurking just on the outside. You have the 15th ranked Texas A&M Aggies at 7-2. At 16 is Kansas State at 7-2, and Coach Prime, Colorado, 17th in the country at 7-2.
Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Brandon Rose is out for the season.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes.
Josh, we've got to start with the breaking news earlier today. Steve Bartle reported that Brandon Rose is indeed done for the season. He'd led Utah's offense to some brief success against BYU, 12 for 21 overall, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. this really hurts because you are, like I said, playing a good Colorado team. Brandon Rose right now was this team's best option to win moving forward. His ability to tuck in and run, I thought were really key. He's better at that than Isaac Wilson is, and he was just playing better football. So it's really hard to not only lose Brant Keithy earlier in the week, but now Brandon Rose as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I hate that for him. Injuries like that, they take a lot of time to come back from. So it's a long recovery process. And like you said, he was the best option moving forward because, watching him in the first half, I'm like, okay, yeah, he can get out of there. I like his how quick he was to make a decision to get out of there, to get out of the pocket. So I hate that, he got injured and that he can't. He's gonna miss the rest of the games moving forward. It's tough. But like Coach Wood always says, next man up. I think what Utah needs to do, with Zach Wilson is go back.
Isaac, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Isaac. Oh my God, I keep getting them mixed up.
No, hey, with what you did in 2019, you got good. You beat BYU. You got good graces. You can make that mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think they need to take go back to the games where he was successful and take a look at what he did well, and then just kind of hone in on that. Figure out what they could tweak, what they could do differently, how they could make things look differently, but still keep it simple for him. And I think that's kind of how Utah will have some sort of success, kind of with these last 3 games left.
I agree, but it does not get easy this week. I originally thought the toughest game remaining on Utah's schedule was going to be Iowa State, but as the Cyclones have stumbled, the Buffs have started to soar. Coach Prime, Deion Sanders has got that team rolling. They are 7-2. Their only loss outside of the loss to Kansas State, what was the Nebraska one earlier in the season, and even the loss against Kansas State, right? That was 31-28. They've won 7 of their last 8. They've won their last 3 games by 11 or more. Shedeur Sanders, Colorado's quarterback, for my money right now, would be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. I think he's playing exceptionally well. He's thrown for 2,882 yards. That's 6th in the nation. Last week, I brought up how Jake Retzloff had never thrown for 250 yards against a Power 4 team in the season. Shedeur's done that in every single game but one, when he had 244 yards against a Power 4 team too. So he's absolutely balling right now. We'll get to some of the weapons, and obviously they got a guy who we'll talk about in a moment. And Travis Hunter, you know his name. He's dangerous, but I really think slowing down Shedeur Sanders is where it starts for Utah, and that is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. Shedeur is everything that everybody is seeing. You know what I mean? He's putting it on tape. He's consistent. I think what you do with Shedeur, I think where he struggles at is kind of improvising. Once the pocket breaks down. Now he does have enough in him to get the job done, but I think what they need to do is find a way to flush him, because I think we have athletic enough players, in Karina Reed. I think they'll easily track him down for sure. I would like to think the BYU quarterback was a lot more better mobily than Shedeur is. I actually like the BYU quarterback. He could throw the ball, but I think that's what they do. That's obviously, like you said, easier said than done, but to me that's the recipe. Like, you figure out a way to get him uncomfortable, and that's how you can at least deal with one problem with taking down Colorado.
Yeah, because there are several. And to your point, though, that's the one thing about Shedeur. He's really good, but he is not the most elusive. He's not Kyler Murray going to run around and buy time all day, right? That's not his game. He is mobile, as you said, capable of doing things, but not super mobile. So he's been sacked 28 times on the year, 3 times against Texas Tech. So Utah coming off a 3-sack performance against BYU, that could bode well for Utah. Run game is just They don't have a back over 400 yards. The O-line is not great, but they actually are playing better as the season's gone on. They got a true freshman left tackle, so that's a position where grown over the course. But while their run game is fine, their receiving core is not just one of the best in the Big 12. I think it probably is. It's one of the best in college football. And of course, it's led by Travis Hunter. 806 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. But of course, the reason he's a Heisman contender is the fact that he goes both ways. And he is a special playmaker. Josh, what do you think about Travis? How does Utah try to tire him out? And as a former defensive back, just how impressive is it that he goes both ways?
Man, I've been watching Travis since he was at Collins Hill. Collins Hill is out here in Atlanta. So it's amazing, because obviously, you got people who do it in high school because, that's very common. But to do it at the Division I level, Power 5, and to be consistent You know what I mean? It's one thing to actually, just do it, but for him to be consistent and as productive as he is, it's nothing short of amazing. Like I truly believe he is the best athlete, just
Mhm.
pure athlete in the whole entire nation. Like out of every
No doubt.
single college football team is Travis Hunter without question.
Yeah, he's unreal. And Utah is going to have to try to wear him out on both sides of the ball, and they really gotta tackle. And Josh, this is something I wanted to ask you
Yes.
too about. Like, you're playing Shador Sanders, you're playing a guy
Mhm.
like Travis Hunter who can break off the tackles. This is a Utah team that plays a lot of man, so you're going to give up some NFL throws. I'm concerned because Shador can make those NFL throws at an incredibly high level.
Yeah, like like I said, Shadur is putting it on tape. He can make
Mm-hmm.
all the throws. He can the short throws, deep throws, everything. He can make it all.
Having seen Utah's DBs in person, how do you feel about them matching up with Colorado's receivers and just Shador?
It's doable. I
Okay.
believe it's doable. I really feel like this is one of those games where you have to be on your P's and Q's though. You have to really. It's got to be one of those games where it's like you got to have a game of your life. Like you got to be so locked
Mm-hmm.
in that you can't mess up. Every I feel like every DB has a game like that. And for either one of those corners, I like out of Cameron Calhoun and Zemiah Vaughn, this is gonna be one of those games for them where they have to no mistakes, good technique, good eyes, good feet, every single play for full 60 minutes. Full 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you compete with Travis Hunter. Because obviously Travis Hunter is one of those athletes like he's gonna make plays.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how are these DBs gonna respond when he does make plays? Are they gonna, give up multiple chunk plays, or maybe they give up one chunk play and come back and get an interception? That's what they have to do in order to stifle this Colorado offense.
And this Utah defense has been really good. I mean,
Yeah.
among Power 4 teams, they rank 9th in total points given up on in points per game given up on the season. 17 points per game given up. That's 9th best in the country. And that's where obviously the offensive struggles have led to this team's rough turn it's taken on their season as they've nosedived in a 5-game losing streak than what the
Mhm.
offense has done. Really quick on the Buffs defense, 68th best defense in terms of total yards at 367 per game, but they have held their last 3 opponents under 30. Utah hasn't cracked 30 in a long time. It was Utah State the last time. And unfortunately, Josh, I even look and I go, well, we did see Wilson move the ball against Oklahoma State. And
Mhm.
while that leaves me a little encouraged, I looked today at a stat that really made me sad. Oklahoma State is the second worst FBS defense in the country in terms of total yards. Only Kent State is worst. So that does not give me the most confidence about like, well, at least we can pull from this one game of, oh, that was against this bad of a defense. So, and Colorado's defense has been doing some better things as of late too. It's going to be a fun matchup this weekend. It's big noon kickoff, the national
Yeah.
spotlight. I know it's a little early, 10 a.m., but I love having it on big noon kickoff, the bigger spotlight, even in a year where Utah's not great. Still always great to have a big game. You get Joel Klatt, Gus Johnson. Joel Klatt, the guy who always says death taxes in Utah football
Yes.
too. So I think it'll still be fun to see how this team performs.